Hi everyone, I'm Jada Burt and this is In My Tracks. You know that feeling when a song comes on and it's so good that it feels like you're frozen in time? Well, that's what this podcast is all about, the songs that stopped me in my tracks. I chat with musicians about their process, challenges, and inspiration. And you discover your new favorite songs. This week on In My Tracks, we're talking to Hydrophonics, a funk and soul organ quartet based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to In My Tracks. I'm your host, Jada Burt, and today I'm speaking with Hydrophonics. Hi there, Andy and Dan. How are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you for being here. So I'd love to start just by asking you, when did your love of music begin?
Dan, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah. So I had a long history of this kind of stuff. I started actually playing saxophone when I was in 7th grade, and it's going to sound a little weird, but I was playing along with Star Wars songs for that was like the biggest thing I loved to do was play along with little like Star Wars songs and John Williams stuff. And from there, I just kind of fell in love. I did everything that I could to be involved in music, jazz band, all sorts of honor bands. And eventually I just decided, hey, maybe I should go to school for this. And I wound up at CCM where I met Andy. And everything just kind of took off from there.
That is wonderful. I mean, Star Wars is inspiring, but yeah, so you can definitely you owe them a little bit. So, but yeah, what about you, Andy?
My parents tell me that it started when I was a kid, like when I was a little baby. They said the only way they could get me to sit still was to like turn music on the speakers and just like turn them up really loud. And I would like sit there and just stare into space, like mesmerized. That could be an apocryphal story. Of course, I don't really know. But I think when I started to feel differently about music was like in high school when I started to play with people my age and I started to get to like form bands with people and see what that was like instead of just like, I was classically trained in piano. So I spent a lot of time just learning classical music by myself and stuff. And when I got to play with other people, it was like, oh, I saw what was possible. I saw what could be done with music. And I decided, oh, this is what I want to do.
That's a wonderful thing to be able to like figure out at such a young age. What would you say collaboration and just working with those around you has done for yourself as a musician and as a person since you've been playing for so long?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I think it teaches you like how to put your ego aside. That's like the first thing you learn is that when there's 4 or 5 other people on stage, especially like being a keyboard player playing behind a singer, like it's not about you. Like you're there to support what's going on and what there to make everyone else sound better. So I think that like having in sports can teach you this too. This is why they say like get your kids in sports, any like collective activity, anywhere you have to be a part of a team. It teaches you that the world is not all about you, and that the goal is to work together to make something beautiful. And I had great like teachers and mentors that really stressed that to me at a young age. So I think that's probably the most important thing I learned, and it's something I'm still working on. We're all still working on it. But it's what makes you valuable as a musician is kind of knowing where you fit in a group and how to collaborate with others.
Absolutely. Those are wonderful points. How would you say that you work to set your ego aside and work to help others do the same since you've collaborated with several people and continue to either have subs in or have your regular members in the groups you play with?
I think like especially in hydrophonics, we're kind of always talking to each other about it. Especially like in the process of recording our EP, it was a lot of like, hey, maybe you should back off here. Like maybe the keyboard's more important here. Maybe the saxophone's more important here. Maybe having a dialogue, like being able to talk to people, and have like a civil conversation about what is actually going to make the music sound better. being able to do that without like getting, railroading anybody or making anybody feel like they're doing the wrong thing. Like it takes people to be on the same page, and you can't do that in every musical situation because sometimes there are egos that are too big and you can't tell those people. I've been in bands where you can't tell somebody that maybe they should do something the other way because they're in charge and they won't like that very much. Um, but most of the people that I play with and that we play with now, it's everybody's there for the same reason because the music is the most important thing, and we just want it to sound the best we can make it sound. So those conversations, being willing to have those conversations, I think is where it all starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about serving the song. I'm glad you brought that up. So going back to hydrophonics, how did you start the band?
Well, we started. We've always had this dream of having a group like this. We tried it kind of in college, and it was just the wrong people, wrong place, wrong time. And after college, we all moved away. Andy went to Nashville. I went to Louisville, and somehow we found our way back to Cincinnati. And when Andy got here, he told me as soon as he got here, he's like, "Okay, we're doing this. We're making an organ group." And we met a few times trying to decide, who we should get, what we should do, and also, like what instruments we should even do, how big or small should the group be? Because we had done like an organ trio a long, long time ago. And so I brought up, our drummer Isaiah Cook as like, okay, whatever group we do, he has to be in it because I love Isaiah's playing. I've always loved his playing, and I didn't get enough chances to play with him. So I said this would be the perfect opportunity. And then I asked Andy, I'm like, okay, who else should we had? And Andy knew this guitar player in town who I had no previous relation to, but I'd heard great things about him, Carlos. And so Andy, how'd you get to know Carlos?
So Carlos and I met I was in college. It was maybe like my sophomore year of college, and I just really started digging into the organ, really started playing organ heavily. And we ended up on a couple of like funk and like R&B gigs together. And he was just an amazing player. I was like blown away. It was some of my first experiences playing with like older guys here in town that weren't just like my classmates, and he could do anything. I mean, he could do anything on the guitar, and that stuck in my mind. I was like, if I ever need somebody for like a funk band or whatever, like he's the guy. And so that never kind of left my mind. And when I came back and when Dan came back and we wanted to start this band, we're like, we need a guitar player, and he was the only person I thought of. I didn't even have another name in mind. Like it was it. It was like, Carlos, please do this. And he said, yeah, right away. Like to both of their credits, like we didn't have anything to show them. We didn't say, here's all the songs we're gonna play. It's just like we want to try this thing. And to Isaiah and Carlos's credit, they were just on board from the get go. Down to collaborate and see where it went. So, yeah, I mean, we couldn't have picked two better
Yeah.
guys. We really couldn't have.
That's amazing to have those relationships and then kind of keep people kind of in the back of your pocket where you're like, I know we can make something great together. Because yeah, you guys are such a tight band. So yeah, it would have seemed like you guys had known each other for, years and years and years. So it's really cool to know that, some end there was a person you knew, Isaiah, and then you were developing that relationship with Carlos, and then as a four piece. Thinking back to your journey here to starting the band here in Cincinnati, what would you say the importance of location is? Like, since you've kind of played in Music City, Nashville, played in other regions, Louisville. Uh, yeah. What level of importance does your location have to you?
I think so. So Cincinnati's famous for its
Hmm.
funk and its soul, right? Like you've got, I mean, Dayton. They say like the Dayton Cincinnati area is like the funk capital of the world, or at least it used to be. And like you've got the Isley Brothers out of here. You got Bootsy. Freak Bass is kind of carrying the torch now. But when when I knew I was moving back, I was kind of looking around. I was like, I don't really see a lot of like bands doing this. At least, definitely not a lot of young people. Um, and it was kind of like, where did it go? It used to be the funk capital of the world. Like people aren't doing it here anymore, and so I think the location's super important because our sound is informed by the history of all of it. And it was kind of in moving back to Cincinnati that I was like, we can bring something that I know the city loves because history shows that it loves it, and nobody's doing right now. So I think that had a lot to do with kind of the fire under me and Dan to start the band. Was like, there's historical significance, even if it doesn't feel like it immediately. Like there's a tradition here that we fit into. So I think the city is really important to the history of funk, and we'd like to just be a tiny sliver of that if we can.
Absolutely. It was definitely refreshing um to see you guys kind of come up in the live music scene. And then yeah, so I was just like I'm waiting for them to release an album. But yeah, super exciting, and it's definitely, bringing some liveliness back to the city and to the funk scene. Um and then thinking about the band, how did you settle on your name, Hydrophonics?
I wish there was a cooler
Yeah.
story to this. I think this was like what was it, Dan? Like a week before the show? Like not
I
probably
think
not
it was
even.
days before the show.
It might have been the night before the show. Our first show at Nostalgia Wine and Jazz Lounge. Our buddy Marcus, who we went to school with, books music there, is a great drummer. And we kind of said, hey, we have this project. Like, can we, let's book a gig? And he was cool enough to give us a shot. And we didn't have a name. Like, I didn't have anything for him to put on the poster, and it was like days before, and we had our set list, we had everything ready to go, but we didn't have a name for the band. And we were just, it was like late one night, and we had a group chat, and like everybody just start firing names into the group chat. And so that's what we did. And we were just like, all right, well, if we all see one we like, and I think I just tossed Hydrophonics in there. And I think Isaiah was like, wait, that could work. That could actually work. Um, and then everybody kind of voted on it, and we settled on it. It's like, yeah, that's got like a ring to it. That's got something that we feel like it fits the sound. It kind of works in the genre. So, yeah, it was very last minute.
That is insane. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we have less than 24 hours. We need a name. Let's just
Yeah.
fire up ideas. But no, that's exciting. I mean, because Hydrophonics, that was a name where I'm like, wait, to be the first one to kind of use that name is really special because it does sound like a name that somebody would have copyrighted or something. So that's exciting, and good thing that you jumped on it 24 hours before the gig. But yeah, it's an awesome name.
I wouldn't have done it that way if I could have chosen, but
Yeah.
sometimes that's how things work out.
Yeah, for sure. It worked out. And so you mentioned the history of funk here in Cincinnati and Dayton, and kind of trying to be a part of that as young players in the city. How did you kind of find and settle on your band sound, your piece of, this part of history in music?
A lot of it was kind of it's just based off of everyone's diverse backgrounds. We all come from different crowds and different musical backgrounds. Me and Carlos have pretty heavy vested interests in jazz, and I play in a lot of different pop groups, and Andy has just this unbelievable depth of knowledge of the blues and hip hop and R&B, and Isaiah, same kind of realm. Pretty much we just got together and we're like, all right, let's just play these songs and see what happens. And every time we rehearsed, every time we performed, it just kept getting better and better. And I don't know how to else describe it. It's like just like a perfect melting pot of everyone, of the four of us. It's such a fun time.
It sounds pretty wonderful. And then seeing you guys play live is also exciting. It's a great experience for the audience because it just seems like you guys are having a lot of fun, but are also like masters of your craft. Thinking more about, playing professionally, when did you know that you specifically were meant to pursue music professionally?
Mm. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think if I had to like pinpoint a time. It was probably around like sophomore or junior year of high school, maybe, when it's kind of start time to start thinking about college for me. And it was like there were three things I liked: history, English and literature, and music. And music was what I was doing the most, but I knew, a lot of adults in my life were like, that's really tough. Like, I mean, not that you can't make any money in any of those three things, but
Mhm.
um I think, music was probably where I had the most promise. And a lot of the adults in my life were like, it's going to be really hard. Like, it's, you're not going to have a lot of money. You're going to have to work really, really hard. Um, and started going around to colleges and kind of gauge an idea of where I was and how I was going to fit in the music world. But it was probably around then that I knew, like, this is what I love. I don't really want to do anything else. I can't really imagine doing anything else. Um, and I just practiced every day. I was like, nothing's gonna stop me. I have to be good enough to get into school so that I'm good enough to play with people. Kind of set my mind to it and just never stopped.
I had a similar thing around the same age, junior year of high school, thinking like, okay, well, college is coming up. And, my mom had the same talk with me. She was like, you're not going to make any money. And I just sat there and thought, yeah, I could do any other job. I could sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and I would end up being miserable. And I just decided I didn't want to be miserable. And if I was going to be miserable, I'd rather be miserable doing something that I love. And I just kind of said, okay, I'm going to set my goal as high as I can. I'm, thinking about the school of Cincinnati. Everyone I grew up in Kentucky. Everyone went to a Kentucky school and they all got all these amazing scholarships and all this stuff in Kentucky. But I said, I want to go somewhere that I don't know anybody. And so I decided on UC. And I just kind of I worked my butt off, practiced as much as I could, and I'm so happy that I did because of that work and because of me just saying nope, I'm only going to make one option of going to school for music. That's how I met Andy, and now I've had to put up with him for about a decade at this point.
Yeah, almost 10 years. That is really nuts.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think a lot of people suffer when those around them kind of burden them with their limiting beliefs. Because, yeah, I think a lot of kids are just told, like, yeah, it's just not going to happen. Like, you can do it for fun, but you ought to become an accountant. So how about you just study accounting and you'll figure out you can just play in your room sometimes. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can have this nice just hobby.
I think we had great supportive
Yeah.
parents.
Mhm.
I don't think, you have to have somebody in your life that believes in you to do this. And we should take a moment to just acknowledge that. I know I wouldn't be here without my parents pushing me and without them driving me to gigs when I
Yeah.
couldn't drive.
Mhm.
Like, all these things, like, if someone is not behind you, you don't have a chance. It's too hard. There's too many obstacles. And so we owe it to them. Dan, I know your mom is like one of the most supportive
Oh my
people
God.
of
Yeah.
everything you do, and my mom and dad are like that too. So it's big to have that in your life. You need it to do this.
Yeah, because my mom was, she was a lawyer. She had all this stress from all this stuff, and so after, of course, giving the talk that every parent, she's like, "Look, I have to do this. I have to say you're not going to make any money. It's going to be hard." And then she said, "But if it's what you want to do, I'm going to help you however I can." And same thing, she got me to gigs. She got some connections for me, and she's just supported me this whole way, and I'm unbelievably grateful to her for that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it does take a village for sure. But, since you've been playing for so long, how do you keep going? How do you keep your motivation when it gets difficult?
I feel like a lot of it for me is it's just more determination than anything. There are some days I don't want to play saxophone. There are some days I don't want to write music. Um, and the days that I've given in to that, oh, I want to be lazy, have been the worst days ever. The days where I sit there and I say, no, just pick up the instrument, just go to rehearsal, just go to the gig. I know it's been a long day, but go there, reset your mind, and just be in the moment as much as you can. And I'm always rewarded emotionally just by, I was playing the other night with Carlos. It was a different kind of gig, and I was just having the worst day beforehand. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. But I got to the show. I just kind of reset. I said, look, Carlos, here's where I am. Let's play music. And it was a beautiful night of music. And it's just being able to perform with these people that I care about so much and I connect with so much. It makes all of this worth it. I don't have to think. I don't have to let any sort of extra thing. It's not like I lose motivation for this band. I get the pleasure of, playing with Andy, Carlos, and Isaiah. Every gig that I have with them is just, it's like the most refreshing thing you can think of. So that's kind of what keeps me going.
It's like church. It's like the thing that it's spiritual in some ways. Like it's so you go completely out of yourself. Like so we played last night for the first time in a while. And it was like all the crap from the holidays, like all the the holidays can be a weird season. It can be kind of tough seeing your family that you haven't seen in a long time. Nobody's on the same page. People are different. People are getting older and stuff. And so, I mean, I know just for myself, it was kind of a weird holiday season. And when we got on that stage, like all that went away. And it was just, you go completely outside of yourself and it sounded amazing. And it kind of reminds you like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. We hadn't played together in like a month or something, or so it had been a while. And you kind of forget. You're like, why do I do all this music stuff? Like, it's hard. You're just teaching or you're playing, I work at a church. So like you're doing things that aren't necessarily exactly what you want to do. And that can kind of grind you down. But when you get on stage, all that goes away and you remember like, oh yeah, this is it.
How do you play off of the audience? What kind of role does the audience play for you when you do play live? Because that is kind of like a huge part of how I noticed you guys is just um, glowing reviews from people who had the chance to see you live before you started releasing music.
We feed off the crowd, I think, more than anything. We'll bring as much energy to an empty room as we possibly can, but nothing can match, the feeling you get when, there's an audience there, they're enjoying it, they're vibing. And we've had so many experiences, especially when we were first starting out, and we would play to a room of like people that had never heard of us. And it would be a bunch of people who, aren't necessarily there for the music in some of these venues. And it's a great experience. You could see them one by one start to turn their heads and be like, "Oh, what's this?" And they start getting into it. And by the end of the set, they're going wild. Like they're having so much fun, and the amount of fun that they have, translates to us every time. You get the anytime Andy takes somebody to church, you hear somebody in the crowd yell "church." I'm not even the one playing, and I'm having a good time.
I think that part of it is the music that we choose too. Like I wanted it to be like a funk band and still have like the freedom to improvise and to be spontaneous. But if you look at our set list, like almost all of it is songs, apart from our originals, there's songs that people are going to recognize. Like I had someone come up to us last night and say, "You won me over when you played that Bee Gees song." And it was like we played "How Deep Is Your Love," and it's like, yeah, people were singing along. Like you get to the chorus and everybody's just singing the song, and there's no feeling quite like that. I mean, we're an instrumental band; like we don't have lyrics. There's no songs where people can like sing the lyrics along. But when you play covers and you play them in such a way that they just feel right and they feel recognizable to people and they start singing along, like that's a beautiful experience. They're part of the show now. And all great bands, I think, find a way to integrate the audience in some way.
Absolutely. And it's an exciting thing to be able to do that so early in this band's career. So thinking more about performing and your catalog as well. If you could choose the first song that a new listener heard, which one would it be?
If I'm showing just somebody on the street who has never heard our group, I mean, funny enough, I would pick Hydroplane just because it's just like every time we play that, everyone in the audience immediately is just their feet are tapping, they're swaying, they're having a good time. It and kind of the way we went about writing it was just kind of like, okay, this is going to be a good, everyone's going to enjoy this song, whether it's their favorite song on the album, because I've had, or EP, because I've had the week it came out, I had a bunch of gigs with other bands, and everyone's like, oh man, I love this song on the EP or this song on the EP, and every one of them had a different favorite. So I'm like, okay, well, is there one that like stands out to everybody? So I would pick probably Hydroplane.
Yeah, I think Hydroplane is the favorite.
But, Champagne Haze, I'm also biased to because I had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, I think Champagne Haze would be it's usually the thing that I pull up first is our Champagne Haze, like live studio video. Just because you can actually see us play it. And I think it's cool. Jay, my brother, shot the video and he did a great job. But it's one that I think kind of encapsulates like everything that we do. You get to hear a little bit of Isaiah, you get to hear Dan, Carlos and I are just laying it down like we do, and I think that song works really well too. But definitely those two are my two favorites.
All right, Champagne Haze and Hydroplane. Of course, we're going to discuss Hydroplane, but before that, I'd love to actually get into how you guys play together. So, is it kind of highly improvised, like you kind of just have the chart and then everyone kind of solos over it? How does it? How do the songs kind of flesh out in the studio in the writing space?
The jazz element of this band is that it's mostly improvised. I would say the originals are maybe a little bit less so, in that we kind of sat down and we decided on like parts that we were going to play to kind of keep the groove and stuff. So we have an idea of how we fit together, but there's no like, hey, you play this here, you play this here. I mean, other than maybe like there's like hits and stuff like that, but it's really just keep your ears open and listen to each other. And because of that, like we sound different. Like if you listen to the record and then you listen to us live play those same songs now, like they don't even really sound the same. They've evolved because we played them so many times, and we hear new things or new, little twists we can put on them. So it's very, very improvised. Like Dan wrote like two charts for like two of his originals that he brought in, but there's no charts for this band. There's no music. Like it's just learn the song and listen and play. That's it.
That's exciting. Yeah. Not only for like as a musician, but then as an audience member, it's like, okay, I don't know what we're going to get, but it's going to be good.
It's different every time.
Yeah, it's the best. Hey everyone. I hope you're enjoying the conversation with Hydrophonics so far. This is the song that stopped me in my tracks. Here's Hydroplane by Hydrophonics. so I picked your song Hydroplane. It was an absolute standout for me on your EP. Like I said before, I was waiting for you guys to release music so we could discuss. So when I heard this song, I was like, this is the one. It's going to be Hydroplane. Hopefully I can get them on. So what inspired you to write this song?
So we, just to give a little bit of context, um, the studio that we recorded it at, Legacy Soundworks, was under construction when we were kind of writing the album, and it's run by a good friend of ours. And they finished it like right about as we were finishing the album. And my buddy hit me up, Eric Shepard, who runs the studio there, and he said, hey, the studio's done and we need like a trial run. We need somebody to come in here and just play for a day and try a session out. Do you have a record? And I think, I don't know how many songs we had at that time, maybe 3.
We had My Two and Champagne Haze.
Yeah, we had 3 songs when it was time to record the record. So it was like, whoa, okay, I guess we got to write 3 more. So, you know, we knew we had Champagne Haze, so I kind of wanted to write something more upbeat, something kind of groovy, but simple in that we could leave a lot of space and it would just give people the impression of like a really danceable groove with a nice melody. And so I just kind of came up with the chords with the groove, that ba ba ba. I just like had that idea and the idea for the other section. And we came together in a rehearsal to kind of refine these tunes that we were writing, and we couldn't come up with a melody. Like we couldn't find, like, what's the melody of this song? There's nothing that goes over this that sounds right. Like I tried some stuff, Dan tried some stuff, Carlos tried some stuff, and then Carlos goes, hey, what if the chords are the melody? What if the melody is just already there? And that's when the song really came together, because he was like, Dan, just pick like some notes that go with our hits and just play them at a time, just drag them. And we did that like once, and it was like a light bulb, like, that's it, that's the song. It's just simpler.
Mhm.
It's simpler than we were making it, you know. And that's sort of how it formed. And then from there, we touched a couple of things up and figured out how the drum solo was going to work at the end and stuff. But it was a group effort for sure. Like I brought in the original idea, but we couldn't have finished it if we didn't all put our heads together.
That is so cool. So it's like the melody was there the whole time.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's always exciting when stuff like that happens. But yeah, another instance where you're like, okay, we need to do something super quickly. Like, how do you manage these tight deadlines? Like, how does that work for you personally, and then with the other members of the band? Because it sounds like you guys are able to just come together and like kind of figure things out really well and almost seamlessly just because of the way you guys are able to work together.
I'm glad it feels that way, because
Mhm.
it certainly doesn't seem that way to us usually. Dan, because I usually just kind of get frantic when
Yeah,
this kind of
yeah.
stuff is going
Mhm.
on. So Dan, maybe you have a better answer.
It may seem on the outside that like everything just seamlessly transition, but a lot of it is, you know, Andy being like, oh no, what do we do? What do we do? And 50% of the time I'm also like that, but then I have to like calm both of us down and be like, okay, no, we'll just figure it out. A lot of it is just, you know, we trust each other a lot. Andy and I know each other extremely well, and we're able to kind of feed off of each other and be like, okay, if one of us is more frantic or like, you know, stressed out, the other one usually is able to.
One of us. It's always
Yeah.
me.
So,
It's
I
always
didn't want to put him on the spot, but whenever Andy gets a little frantic or
You can
stressed
say
out,
it. It's fun. You can say it.
I can bring him back down and be like, okay, no, hold on. Let's, you know, I always like to get the details down. I'm very detail orientated when it comes to scheduling or figuring things out. So a lot of times for things I've been like, okay, here's our deadline. We have no choice but to do this. Let's get a plan together. And somehow that ends up working. And we all, you know, live happily ever after, I guess. But no, there's a lot of hectic moments in the middle.
Yeah, it's hard to get everybody in a room. Like this band, you know, we love doing this. We love playing in Hydrophonics, but we're all in like a ton of different projects. Like we've all got a lot of stuff going on. And so like it kind of just takes it takes these deadlines, it takes like these sort of last minute things where like, okay, we need to make this happen right now for us to really come together a lot of the time, because we're so, as a musician, you're stretched so thin, especially in a smaller city like this. Like, it's not New York, it's not LA, you know, it's, you have to do a lot of different things to make money, you have to spread yourself around, and we all do that. And so, you know, when these kind of deadlines come up, or we set like, hey, we have to have this done by this date, then it lights a fire under everybody, like, okay, let's go, like, let's make it happen, because we have no choice. We all care too much about it to let it kind of fall by the wayside. um so I think it takes moments like that to sort of, for us to get things done sometimes.
Yes, I totally understand that. I mean, there's nothing quite like a deadline, especially when other people are involved. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I have to get this done because it's not just me. So let
Yeah.
me do that. But on your point about all of the kind of responsibilities each of you have as musicians here in the city, playing with several other bands and working on other projects, how do you keep your mental health in check and balance all of your responsibilities while also like thinking about this band in particular, or this the song you want to work on, or the EP you want to drop, or the album you want to drop? It's a lot. So I'd love to know more about your process and what that looks like on a daily or weekly basis.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
I think Andy and I have similar things that we go about doing. I've been hurt for most of this entire last year, but we've been trying to work out, stay healthy, more so because of we've had incidents where Andy has bent over and then just pulled a back muscle before a gig.
Yeah, it was the day of a gig, and we were loading in, and I just, I had to carry some stuff, and I went to set it down, and when I stood back up, I couldn't like
Mhm.
turn my neck. It was like one of those, and we had a gig like later that day, and it was like, oh no. And that was, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Dan was like, all right, dude, you got to get in the gym. This is getting ridiculous. So we did, and so that's one way. Definitely, like, exercising is a really big thing. Because you have to get rid of your excess energy. I mean, we both teach
And you just sit for 6 hours.
after school and stuff. You sit for 6 hours next to a piano and teach, and you're not moving at all. So we try to work out in the morning, and doing it together is nice because you can hold each other accountable, and we can talk about business. We can talk about hydrophonics. Like, we can get stuff done while we work out. So that has been really, really big. That's one piece, though. I mean, it's tough. It's really, doing this as a professional is probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, just to balance everything and to keep yourself from going crazy. And you have to figure out what matters more, because there's only one of you. Like, I don't have a team behind me. It's just me. Um and so you have to figure out, like, where do you put your energy. And I think the reason that hydrophonics has been successful is because we've all been willing to put our energy into this. We've all been willing to say, okay, this matters more than almost anything else we're doing. Um, so I think that's, kind of being on the same page there, having that mindset is important.
At least this past year, a big thing for us, especially healthy as a band, has been just open communication. You know, everybody has struggles that they go through, and so just communicating with everybody and kind of communicating with yourself, being honest with yourself, I feel like has been really helpful. Towards the end of last year, I know Andy and I were getting very just stretched thin because, like you said earlier, we both do a bunch of different things, and just kind of centering at the end of the year, being like, no, hydrophonics, this is important. This is what I want to spend my energy on, and I kind of have, and I know Andy feels the same way. Just a renewed sense of this coming year, I'm going to focus on things that are important, to me and to, the health of who I am, as in that, translates to the health of the band. So it's like, maybe we don't take a gig somewhere because, we have to focus on something else in town, or, I found setting aside time each day to just focus on something that I love or something that I want to do, whether it's music related or not, has been really helpful in the past few months. Being like, I know Andy's he reads a lot more than I do, but I've been getting a lot into reading to just kind of calm everything and recenter myself.
You need hobbies. You have to have hobbies. I was talking to a musician friend of mine yesterday, and he said the same thing. So you have to have a hobby. You have to have things that you get into that just take you away from music, because like if you're working on or thinking about music for like 10 to 12 hours a day every day, you will start to hate it. And we've probably, both of us, I would think, I know I have come to points where it's like, do I even care about this anymore? Like you get so burnt out doing stuff that like isn't fulfilling. You got to just take a break. You have to program things in your day, or have another goal, like have another thing that you're working on, because it gives your creativity another outlet. There's not all this pressure for it to come out one place, and that can take a toll on anybody. So I think that's a great point. Just find things that you love to do outside of music and carve time out of your schedule to do them.
Absolutely. I mean, that that's really how you keep going, because yeah, it is such a grind doing the same thing, like you said, 12 plus hours a day. But it's wonderful to have each other to, support and, hold each other accountable. How would you say you keep burnout at bay and balance your feelings that have come up since you've been performing music professionally? It's no longer a hobby. It hasn't been a hobby in years and years and years. So, how do you keep, that love you had when you were a kid, and, keep yourself, well, while you are literally putting in all these hours to be a professional musician?
It comes down to remembering what it was that made you want to do this in the first place. Like, I try to go back to the music that made me love what I do initially, and that was like the blues first and foremost. Um, so I listen to a lot of, like, if I don't know what else to listen to, I'm like, I don't feel like listening to music right now. Like I can't think of anything. I'll just put like a Freddie King record on. I'll just put like some blues on, and don't listen to it too closely. Just kind of enjoy it, and it kind of takes me back, and it reminds me like, oh, this is why. Like music can make you feel like this, and this is why I'm doing it. Um, but if sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes you have to just take a break. Sometimes I'll go 4 or 5 days, and I just won't. Other than like at work, I won't touch my instrument, because I'm like, I'm burning myself out. I need to get away from it, and when I come back, I'll sound better, because I'll be out of those patterns. Like over the holidays, I didn't practice at all, I don't think. And then yesterday we played, and it was like all these ideas were fresh. I wasn't playing the same stuff I played on the last gig. Like it felt different. And taking a break, like taking vacations, just do whatever you can, just get away from it for a little while. 'Cause, I mean, that's what most people that have day jobs do, right? But as musicians, it's kind of expected that you're always grinding. Um, and you have to remember, like, nobody does that. You can't live that way. You have to be able to take a break. You have to be willing to just step aside for a little bit. I don't know, Dan, do you feel the same way about that? I mean, is that along the lines of what you're thinking?
Yeah. So, in the same vein as you, whenever I'm not feeling the music, or I'm down in the dumps or anything, there are records I'll put on. There's some older videos of stuff that I'm just like, I still get chills when I hear them. Like there's some Joel Fromm stuff, a musician that I idolize, that I'll just put on a song of his, and it just immediately I'm inspired again. I'm like, oh wow, this is what I want. This is what got me into all of this. I'll put on something that I listened to when I was in high school, and I'll be like, oh wow, it's still just as fresh as the first day I heard it. And definitely the stepping away. If I step away personally for too long, I get antsy. The last few weeks I've Had, of course, an injury because the year of 2023 for me was the year of the injury. I almost sliced my finger off, and
Oh, no.
I couldn't play the saxophone for 3 weeks, and that was not a fun time. But when I got back to it, I was able to kind of start experimenting again and approach things, like you said, in a fresh way because of just the education that I went through. And a lot of times when I'm practicing, I'm working on a goal, or I'm trying to achieve this thing. I found it to be most refreshing when I turn that half of my brain off when I'm playing saxophone, and I just say, I'm just going to play. Not going to go in with any goals. I just want to play the saxophone, And I tell my students this all the time. Like, they're all, because they always get upset with me, of course. I'm a mean teacher. I tell them they have to practice things. Oh, no. And I tell them, like, you're allowed to just play your instrument. But then I also forget that I'm allowed to just play my instrument. I'm so caught up with, I have to learn this solo, or I have to learn this song for a gig coming up. And I constantly forget, just sit there and play. And every time I do that, I just get so happy. I'm just like, oh, wow. Right. I like this instrument. I like the sounds that I can produce. It's just refreshing to just play. And that's what it is. It's like playing with hydrophonics. Like Andy said, there's no charts. That's just feel. So I don't have to think about anything. I just play. And it brings me back to ground.
That's amazing to be able to do, to kind of through your practicing, be able to return to kind of your childhood self in a way, when you were kind of just learning. So when you didn't want to practice scales, you'd be like, well, I'm just going to play a little bit, and it's still practicing. I'm not doing my scale right now, but still practicing. So that's amazing. Yeah, to be able to have that balance and keep that love you have for music and for your instrument and yourself as a person, because that's the most important thing. We kind of touched on this a little bit. Finishing out the EP was a bit hectic. You were working on a deadline. What did you learn about yourself specifically while working on this song?
Well, I learned that I really like the 3 chords that first come up in this song. I've written a lot of music, a lot of which is unreleased, but I use the same 3 chords in almost everything I write. No, but I think I hadn't really written anything in a while when we started writing this record. And I kind of felt like I had lost my mojo a little bit. Like I was like, man, I just don't have that many ideas. Like, I love the way this band sounds, but I don't know what our original music is supposed to sound like. And I think I showed myself that I'm capable of coming up with good ideas, if the motivation is right, if it's pure. Like, if I don't care if I ever make money off of it. I don't care if somebody else doesn't like it. This song, this idea is what this band needs, or this is what we need to sound like. I think I just wrote it like, how can we showcase what we can do? And I think I proved to myself, like, oh, I can do this. Like, if even within 2 weeks of whatever, when we have to record it, like, kind of like what I said earlier, if you got that fire under you, like, it has to happen, and you can perform. Like, that's what we've both worked our whole lives to be able to do, is like, under pressure, can you come up with something? Can you perform? Like, can you get it done? And so it gave me a little bit of confidence there, I think, in writing it.
With this song specifically, I feel like it helped tame any sort of saxophonist ego that comes with the inherent nature of my instrument. This is like the one song where I get to take a back seat, and honestly, I found it liberating. So much of what I have to do is the nature of my instrument is you have to solo, you have to do this, you have to play the melody.
Play a lot
of notes, yes. And for this song, just the group and what the music needed, it was just like, no, you don't need to do really much of anything. Just sit there, play along with the band, and it's like, oh, wow, I get to play the part that Andy almost always plays, where it's just like, no, I get to just groove. I get to lay in the pocket and not have to do all this stuff that, a lot of saxophonists will kind of be in that realm of like, okay, I got to play every amount of notes that I possibly can in the shortest amount of time. And Hydroplane for me was just like, no, it's okay to just sit back and enjoy the ride. You don't have to do anything crazy. And so,
yeah, there's an art to that, and you did
Mhm.
a great job on. I mean, you had 3 notes to play, but it was like, okay, I'm gonna play these 3 notes like they're the most important 3 notes in the whole song, and that's what I think makes the melody work, is the way that you phrase it and the way that you attack, like just the. I mean, you literally play like 5 notes in this song. You play like 2 on the bridge, and like 3 in the A section.
and one of them on the bridge is the same as the A section. So I play 4 notes the whole song.
Yeah, you play like 4 notes the whole song, but it works. It works, and you have to your credit, like you didn't do anything extra, and it's just another piece, right? It's another piece that makes the song work.
When we were writing the melody, like you said earlier, I was doing this stuff. You and I had come up with some extra stuff, and Carlos was just like, stop that. Like, we had a melody close to what we ended up on, and it was just like, the song does not need that. We don't need this specific melody. The song needs this.
Just groove, baby. Just groove.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like serving the song. Like from listening to it, it felt like the song that kind of showcased everyone, and the saxophone was, nicely. It was just perfectly understated. It supported the song so well, but I felt like it was a song where I was like, okay, this is Hydrophonics. They they know how to play off of each other. So yeah, it's cool to hear about how that came to be, because yeah, saxophonists, they're put through it. And I'm like, wow, they haven't had a chance. I noticed this person has not had a chance to breathe in a minute. But so that's amazing. So this is a song where you're like, I can breathe for several bars. But yeah, so it's been some time since the EP has been released. How would you say you've changed since releasing it, and also like kind of releasing this song as well? You said before that it's different when you play it live. I know you played it before it came out, and so yeah, I'd love to know more about how you all have changed.
One thing that has happened is that we have, over the course of recording this, or really after recording it and releasing it, we played a lot of shows in a short period of time. Like we were playing like two or three a month around the release of the record. And it was probably the highest like volume of shows that we had played in a while. And it really like opened up a lot of new doors, even in the same old songs. I think we're a different band.
Yeah.
Like, if honestly, the record is the most tame version of us that I can possibly imagine. We did it in one day, so everyone was trying to like make as few mistakes as possible. Like I couldn't overdub because of the way that the organ was set up, so I just couldn't play a wrong note. Like if we were going to use a take, I had to play all the right notes. And so it was like, okay, I know I was really reserved. If you hear us live, like it's nothing like that. It's really aggressive. Like nobody's afraid to go anywhere. We can still lay back. We can still chill when we need to. But the dynamic of it is completely different. And I think that dynamic of the live show has expanded even more, and there's even more freedom there. Like we don't even really have to cue anything anymore.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of just like we know when somebody's finishing a solo. We know when we're going to the next section. Like nobody even has to look up.
Nobody looks up.
Mhm.
Nobody looks up. I play with my eyes closed. Like we know where everything's going to go, and that wasn't there before, but it is now.
Yeah, the chemistry has definitely gotten just a lot tighter. We play. Yeah, I think the word aggressive is a good one. It's not like we're attacking or playing anything scary to the audience. But for me personally, I'm able to be a lot more explosive in my playing live than I was on the recording of the EP. Speaking that I couldn't move my neck the day of the EP. I sprained my neck the week of the EP.
Oh,
So
my goodness.
the whole recording, if you look carefully enough in the music videos, you'll either see ibuprofen or me not moving my neck at all. And so for me personally, I'm able to move my neck, and also it's just being able to take chances on stage is a lot more freeing. I'm able to do things that I wouldn't dream of in a studio. But one thing I found to be that it's improved a lot since this, that series of shows where we were playing like 6 times in 2 months. We just listen to each other better. We are able to, play off of each other. We know almost exactly what each other's going to do. Isaiah will play something and Carlos, he's not looking at Isaiah, will play the exact same thing. Or Carlos has just the most perfect response to whatever Andy is doing. And we get this comment a lot, especially last night at Cafe Vivace. People were like, man, it's insane how you guys are just playing off each other so well. And at this point, we don't even realize that we're just doing what the music wants us to do. And it's great. The more we play, I feel like every single gig, it just keeps getting better and better. And that's not a feeling I've gotten with any other group that I've played with. So it's a little, it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, I think it feels more like the music is happening.
Yeah.
And less like we're making it happen now. It sort of just feels like you're not in the driver's seat anymore. Like the band is just doing its thing. Kind of taking it full circle, I guess that's your ego just dropping away completely, right? Like there is no ego in this band, I don't think. It's just totally whatever's going on in the moment is what's going on. And your job is to support that. And that's what I think the difference is now. Yeah, like you can hear that in our performances versus maybe a year ago. I think that just we weren't all the way there yet.
Yeah, that's the place to be, especially in such a short amount of time, playing together and getting your charts together, getting your songs together, your EP, playing several shows, and, forming that sound, is invaluable. So I'm glad you guys were able to get there. So thinking more about yourselves as individuals, if you could speak to your younger selves who were just starting their careers in music, what would you say?
So first thing I would say is it's going to be harder than all of these adults are telling you. Because everybody that was telling me that it was going to be hard, none of them were musicians. None of them were professionals at all. So they really didn't know. They just knew maybe secondhand, like this is going to be tough. But they didn't know how. They couldn't really explain it to me. So I think I would probably sit myself down and say, look, you're going to have to do a lot of different things. You're going to have to learn a lot of different skills. But the most important thing is to remember why you're doing this in the first place. Like either think of the alternative, which is like a desk job, which I don't think I could do for very long, or try to remember those moments where when you were like 15 or 16, like your first gigs, remember those. Remember what it felt like to get on stage and play with people for the first time and have people come up to you after the show and say, hey, I really enjoyed what you guys were doing. Like those are the moments that matter, and you got to pay attention in those moments because those are the ones that keep you going, not the hours in the practice room, not, putting your EP on DistroKid. Like that's all just stuff that happens in the course of it. It's the connections you make with people. And it's those moments where you're playing with your best friends that sustain you.
I would say, in addition to what Andy said, I would tell my younger self, this is more of like a personal thing to me, but just to listen more. And that's just with relation to everything. Listen to more music. Listen to people who are trying to give you advice more. When you're an undergrad, you might have this air about you being like, oh, I'm a jazz musician or this and that. It's like, okay, listen to the people you're playing with. That's something that I can guarantee every jazz musician or every musician in general, they're not listening to anybody else when they're performing. They're listening to how they sound, what they sound like. And, you have to listen to what's going on around you. And this group I know has helped me just immensely get better at listening to what's around me. And so if I could have been doing this my whole career, who knows what would have happened. And just listening to myself, my body more. I feel like I had a lot of issues with tendon inflammation, tinnitus. I have all sorts of other things that I wasn't listening to my body or, my mind. And so just telling myself, sit back and actually take account of what's happening. If your body's telling you your wrist is inflamed, maybe don't go in and practice for an hour. Maybe go do some stretches, just generally listening. I feel like younger people have a lot of issue with. And so I would have liked to have been on this listening journey maybe a little bit earlier, but I feel like I'm getting there now.
You wrote a song about that, right? It's on the EP.
No, listen's not quite about that, but
Those are such wonderful points that, everyone can use to kind of make themselves a better person and take with them. So we spoke a lot about your EP and then your live shows. What else are you excited to promote this year?
So I would say if you haven't already, make it to a live show.
Yeah.
They're getting crazier and crazier every time we play. And if all you've heard is the record, it ain't like that. It's very different. So I would say try to make it out. Follow us on on the socials and stuff, and find out where we're playing, because it's different. It's even if all you saw us last year, it's not the same band. So yeah, I mean we don't really have any another project in the works right now. We're hoping that we can get together and start writing more. The end of last year was focused on just getting the EP out. There was a lot of work. So we're kind of like, okay, what's next now? We want to play as much as we can, and we want to try to write and see what comes out, what's coming next. But I would say definitely try to make it to a live show.
Absolutely. Yeah, the live shows are the place to be. And then where can people find you?
We are on Instagram and Facebook. We don't have a website currently. You can stream us anywhere you listen to music, Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. And then just around in Cincinnati, ask people about us. I think the word has been getting out. We sold out Cafe Vivace on a Thursday last night, which was a really, really cool thing to look up and to see people in seats. So I think the word is getting out. But yeah, look for us on the socials. That's where we promote everything. And stream the record. Buy it on Bandcamp too. If you like it, buy it on Bandcamp. That helps artists so much. Bandcamp is really, really valuable, and they laid off like half their staff last year. So please, support Bandcamp, support artists. If you dig what we do, please buy the record. I can't stress that enough.
Yes, absolutely. It's still a job at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
I am right there with you. You love an album, buy an album.
Yeah.
Or you love an artist, for an artist. So thank you guys so much for being on In My Tracks. I had such a wonderful time learning more about you two as individuals and then as members of Hydrophonics. I can't wait to see where you guys continue to go. And yeah, I love your music. You guys are absolute beasts live. And yeah, I'm so happy to be here in Cincinnati hearing this awesome music. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jada. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to In My Tracks. The show was created and produced by me, your host and friend, Jada Burt. And shout out to Play Audio Agency for recording, editing, and producing the show, and for composing the original theme music you are currently jamming out to. Please rate, review, and follow In My Tracks everywhere you listen, including Spotify, where I curate playlists that pair with each episode. Did you hear a song that stopped you in your tracks? Share it with me. DM me on Instagram at InMyTracksPod, because music is meant to be shared. See you next time.